This is a HeadGum podcast.
Radical Dreams Pins is a socially conscious accessory brand that creates lapel pins and other accessories, including patches, buttons, keychains, necklaces, and clutch bags. Their enamel pin designs are based on social justice statements, positive messages, and prominent figures in Black culture. Some of their best-selling pins are portraits of Barack and Michelle Obama, Malcolm X, Shirley Chisholm, Huey P. Newton, and Angela Davis. They also have pins that pay tribute to old favorites, such as Dwayne Wayne, Whitley Gilbert, and Susie Carmichael from the Rugrats. Radical Dreams consistently donates a portion of their proceeds to community organizations like Black Lives Matter, the Trayvon Martin Foundation, and Black Girls Code. If you're looking to get your pin and patch game up, Radical Dreams is the place to start. Go to their website, www.radicaldreams.net, and use the code BGN to get 15% off your first order.
Universal FanCon is a brand new convention coming to the Baltimore Convention Center in April of 2018. FanCon will be a round-the-clock event featuring comics, cosplay, gaming, celebrity guests, music, and more with a focus on diversity and inclusion. Get your tickets now at universalfancon.com because geek is universal.
Hi, this is Rachel True, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
I'm V. Watkins, New York Times bestselling author of The Cook Up and The B-Side. You are now listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
My name is Idris Elba, and you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
This is Riley Ritchie, a.k.a. Jacob Anderson, a.k.a. Grey Worm from Game of Thrones, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
Yeah, so this is Tahir Jeter, writer, director, and producer of How to Tell You're a Douchebag. I am very happy to have taken part on the Black Girl Nerds Podcast. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malik Forte. I am a professional nobody, but you might have seen my work on Nerdist.com or soon Bleacher Report, and you are now listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
We are the Lucas Bros, and we were just on Black Girl Nerd Podcast, and it's fantastic. And listen to it every day, every hour, because they are awesome.
Hey y'all, this is LeVar Burton, Kunta, Jordy, Reading Rainbow Guy. You are listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast. It is the bomb diggity podcast on the interwebs, but you don't have to take my word for it.
5, 6, 7, 8. Holla boys and girls, it's the BGN. Coming from the Marvel world to the DC friends. All the way from Hollywood to the PCN. She defends everyone from sleazy men. Won't apologize for spitting Shonda rhymes. The space that we make is never colonized. We're talking games and movies and actors. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Yeah, better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Ha. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 113 of the Black Girl Nerds Podcast. My name is Jamie, and I am your host. This episode is titled Mica Burton, Everything Everything, and BGN's Comic Diversity Panel. 3 incredible segments. In our first segment, we invite Mica Burton, cosplayer, gamer, streamer, all-around geek, and she does it all over at Roosterteeth. She talks to us about her work there, and we do talk about her famous dad, the legendary LeVar Burton. That segment is hosted by yours truly and Kayla. In our second segment, Kayla does a one-on-one segment with actresses Anika Noni Rose, Amandla Stenberg, and director Stella Meghie. The new Warner Brothers film Everything Everything. This film is one of the few movies that a major studio is backing with key roles comprised of Black women. In our third segment, we head back over to Las Vegas at ClexaCon 2017. You may have remembered back in a previous episode where we talked about fandom culture. Well, in this episode, we're talking about comic book diversity and the comic book medium, how it's changing and shifting. So myself is featured along with Kayla, Joelle, and Valerie. So that's our show, filled with extraordinary women doing some amazing, groundbreaking things, and the pop culture side to the geek side. So sit back, relax, and enjoy BGN 113. Mica Burton, Everything, Everything, and BGN's Comic Diversity Panel. Mica Burton is a cosplayer, actress, YouTuber, streamer, and staff member over at Roosterteeth Productions, currently working as an editor and reoccurring secondary host and head of the streaming at Achievement Hunter. She's also best known for her first appearance on the Roosterteeth game show On the Spot with John Rissinger. She's also the daughter of Star Trek actor LeVar Burton. Take a listen. Welcome to this special segment of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. My name is Jamie. I am your host. Tonight we have a cosplayer, an actress, a YouTuber, a streamer, and a staff member over at Roosterteeth. Very excited, very excited. And you know, her dad's kind of famous.
Only a little bit though.
We have none other than Mica Burton here on the Black Girl Nerds podcast. Mica, thank you so much for coming back. This is your second time around.
This is my second time. Thank you guys for having me.
And we have our lovely co-host Kayla with us on the interview. Thanks, Kayla, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to jump right into this. Mica, you work for Roosterteeth, and for our listeners out there who may not know, because there's some folks out there that might not know, like a few.
Right.
Can you let them know who and what Roosterteeth is all about, and tell us more about this organization?
So Roosterteeth is this crazy internet production company, I guess is the best way to describe it. They started off doing this little machinima show called Red vs. Blue with just a few founders, and it took off on YouTube. I think it's the record holder for the longest running machinima show that exists, and now it does animation like the anime Ruby, which is now being dubbed in Japan by some pretty cool voice actors. In the specific section where I work at The Know, we are one of the top news networks on YouTube, and we report on gaming and movies and all things nerd. And then we have another subdivision called Achievement Hunter that focuses on gaming and Let's Plays and gaming content. And so it's pretty much just a big family of nerds who love the same thing who have a job on YouTube, I guess.
So you basically have the best job ever, is what you're telling me.
Oh, yeah. Every week we have yoga classes and there's microbrews in the fridge, so it's pretty rad.
What?
I know, right?
Nice. And I know that you're an anime geek. Like, I love seeing your Twitter. You express that so much. And I myself, personally, I'm anime deficient. I'm still learning. I know.
We have to educate you.
So, yeah, educate me. Can you give me some suggestions as someone who's new, or to anybody else out there that's like their first time getting into an anime? What's a good anime to watch for newbies?
Well, personally, I'm biased because my first anime was Sailor Moon when I was a kid. The old school 90s anime. Like that, it came on every Monday after Oprah. I remember that vividly. And I definitely would say for like a newcomer, start with the old 90s animes. Yes, they're a little campy and sometimes a little hard to watch, but like Cowboy Bebop and Sailor Moon and stuff like that are just, it gives you the background on where today anime has come from, and then watch what everybody's talking about. You know, everybody talks about Yuri on Ice, which also I'm biased. I love that anime. But if you're into like some darker stuff, there's the classic Death Note or Black Butler. There's honestly, no matter what you love, there's an anime out there for you. There's even like cooking anime. So if you love cooking, you got it.
Wow. Now that I did not know. There's a cooking anime?
Yes,
that's a
there's
thing?
pretty much an anime for any genre, any hobby, anything you could possibly want. There's an anime about it. So if someone's like, oh, I'm just not into anime because it's all about sparkles and magical girls, it's like, dude, you clearly don't know enough about anime.
And you know, it's interesting you mentioned Cowboy Bebop. That's not the first time someone's told me to go to that as a you know, for a newbie that's getting into anime. And the one anime that I have watched that I fell in love with was in fact Death Note. So
Yes, it's so good.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So anything along those lines, I'm more interested in watching.
Oh, then honestly, if you go on something like Crunchyroll and you like type in, I like Death Note, or, they have a recommended, if you like this anime, you'll like this anime, you're going to find thousands of hours of great content to watch. And you really can't go wrong unless it's a critically panned anime. It's probably good.
So it's clear you don't sleep, because between hosting and cosplaying, acting, streaming, editing, you're always going. So what are some things that you do for your self-care when everything just gets a little bit too hectic and crazy?
That's actually a solid question, because I do need more self-care in my life.
The struggle's real.
Right? I'm probably 98% coffee right now, and that's not good. But I do take time, like when I realize I'm stressed or like my hands are shaking. And as stereotypical as it is, I love booking massages for myself. Like I'll save up and like make sure I can go to a massage place and just take that hour to myself and just come back more zen as a person. I also ice skate, which is half workout and half relaxing, because being on the ice is like so calming for me. But my coach really wants me to train to compete in the winter season. So now she's like totally on me and stressing me out. But when I can go to free skate, it's just nice. So I think that's pretty much what I do to calm down, is skating and massages. It's a weird combination.
I think everybody could do with just booking at least. I think if everyone booked at least 2 massages a year, there would be like less problems in the world. But that's just me.
And that's all you really need. Like, it's not an often thing. It's not like an every other week thing. It's definitely when I realize I'm at my peak and it's time to completely come down from that stress. I realize, you know what? No, treat yourself. Book a massage.
Exactly.
On a bit of a more serious note, when we talk about intersectionality here at BGN within a geek space, we rarely get to hear from the perspective of queer women of color, and you openly identify as bisexual, so do I. So,
awesome.
What are some ways you think we can open up those channels of communication?
I think that it's one of those things where I find it really funny when people say something like, oh, it's not realistic for LGBT people to hang out with each other all the time. Like, that's such a stereotype. And it's like, actually, I think through anime and through cosplay and through gaming, I found my people. I found that corner and that niche. Like, I found my current girlfriend through a cosplay photographer, and she's a cosplayer too. And it's like, I feel like there just needs to be a dialogue that lets these people in hiding know that it's okay in this nerd community, in this nerd world, because we've gone through it. We get it. But we're here for you, and we can introduce you to hordes of other people who have gone through it and get it. But I know that it's so hard for especially like nerds of color who are told that being nerdy is a white thing, or gay nerds of color who just keeps piling it on. It's like, you just need to be told, like, hey, I'm here. I'll help you. You're not alone. As cheesy as that is, you're not alone. And I think just that small statement can be so helpful.
When you go to the conventions, and I'm one that goes to, especially an anime convention, those are the ones that I frequent the most. That's where you see those niches where it's really hard to get in.
Right.
Unless you know someone. And so
right.
it's just, I feel like that we're treated as a subset, as just being part of a whole group. So I feel like we've got a long way to go, but we've definitely made it a little bit better, especially with a lot of the rules you're seeing and the meetups that are being made at cons. I think that's definitely making, its way in for it just being all inclusive anyway.
I totally agree. I think the daisy chain of like, if you know someone, they'll get you in, who will get you in. Eventually that in will break and it'll just be one big group. But right now it's kind of like Club 33 at Disneyland. You need to know someone to get an invitation.
Yes.
And I think that if, more intersectional people in this community are aware of like, oh, let me reach out and extend that invitation, the quicker this cliquey nonsense can just break apart and we can all be one big nerdy community. Because like, come on, y'all, we're dressing up like anime characters. Why is it so exclusive?
Exactly.
Like, We are putting on wigs and contacts and stuffing ourselves into corsets and push-up bras and pretending to be Overwatch characters. Like, I don't know why it became this big weird thing. It's like when I sound so old when I'm like back in my day when cosplay was for fun. But it's like honestly, like when I was first going to conventions, maybe I was just ignorant of the community or just was doing it for funsies. But I thought, it's cosplay. Play is in the word.
Right.
It's fun.
Yeah, you're right. It's supposed to be fun. And something that's really interesting to me is the hypocrisy of people that get criticized, people of color that get criticized by white fans in the anime cosplay community, saying, "Oh, well, you're black, you can't be Sailor Moon." When isn't Sailor Moon a Japanese character? So like,
thank you. Like,
I don't understand that.
This whole deep layered hateful nonsense of who can cosplay what and who baffles me. Or like I had to have a conversation with someone about, darkening your skin for cosplay. And I'm like, do you see me going and putting on like 15 pounds of white foundation all over my skin to go cosplay Sailor Neptune? Like, no. And they're like, oh, well. And I'm like, exactly. So move on. It's not who can look like the character most game. Like that's for promoters and official official cosplayers. If the whole goal is that they look like they stepped out of the video game, like Leon Cairo, who looks exactly like Gladio from Final Fantasy 15. Like, there you go. That makes sense. It would be weird if he was promoting for Final Fantasy 15 and he looked nothing like the character. But if you're going to a convention to have fun with your friends or you want to do photo shoots because you love Sailor Neptune, there's no point. It doesn't make sense. Just be respectful. Let people do what they like. Let people like the thing. Why can't you just let people like the thing?
That's so big because it comes especially within the world of cosplay when you're playing fictional characters. And in my mind, it makes sense that you shouldn't be a certain color to play a crystal gem, but apparently you have to be a certain color to play a crystal gem. I found that out. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay, sounds good. Sounds great.
I'm definitely that old woman of cosplay who's just like turns off the drama filter. And I'm just like, I'm just here to have a good time, everybody.
And we talked about intersectionality and fandom, and I and Kayla as well, we're both working with Universal FanCon, which celebrates diversity, celebrates inclusion, and it's for all fans everywhere. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that your dad, of course, is the legendary LeVar Burton, the blurred icon. And he actually backed Universal FanCon, our Kickstarter, and we appreciate that so much. And I know I'm putting you on the spot by asking you this, but when you decide to come to Universal FanCon, because you're totally invited, who would you like to cosplay as? And what's the best cosplay that you've ever done?
I have this Camilla from Fire Emblem cosplay that I haven't debuted yet.
Yes!
And I think that's something I definitely need to bring to a con one of these days. And also my Cindy from Final Fantasy 15 is near and dear to my heart, and she travels easy because she's just a bra and short shorts. So probably something like that.
That's awesome.
So you're a huge gamer and you stream. What are some of your most anticipated games for 2017, 2018? And what are you like currently geeking out over? Because I'm still geeking out over Overwatch, and I probably will be until I'm like dead in a grave somewhere.
Oh, 100% agree. Like Overwatch will always be my child, and I don't think I can ever stop playing. Currently, Breath of the Wild still is eating away at my time.
Isn't it beautiful?
It's so beautiful. Like I played it at E3 last year, and I think my dad still has photos of it on his phone somewhere. I sobbed the entire demo. Like it was definitely embarrassing. The demo, like people were probably pretty embarrassed on my behalf. But Zelda is one of those games that like I've loved since inception. And so having Breath of the Wild come out was like an event for me. So I'm still taking my time. I want 100% complete it, like 900 Korok seeds, every shrine, and then do it again on hard mode. And then Persona 5 is eating away at my life right now because it's one of those, your first run is 100 plus hours.
Mm-hmm.
But as for games that are coming out, I mean, it's probably never going to exist, but Kingdom Hearts 3.
I'm so sick of waiting. It's not even fun anymore.
Right?
Like, I'm done. I've completely absolved myself that it's never going to happen. I have introduced my child to it, and he's like, when did it happen 3? And I said, 3 will never exist.
3 doesn't exist. It's like, it's a running joke with my coworkers that whenever something about Kingdom Hearts 3 is mentioned, they always are like, oh, don't tell Mica. She'll get excited, then her heart will get broken again. Because it's not happening. It's never happening. I'm never going to see it. I know. But anything on the Switch, I think that's coming out, because the day the Switch was announced, I knew I was going to pre-order it. I pre-ordered it. Second pre-orders went up. I take it with me everywhere. So anything that can get me more software on my favorite new console, I'm down for.
I've played it and I'm waiting because I feel like once I introduce it into my house, I won't exist anymore. Jamie will no longer have help with any more BGN stuff.
That's why I had to stop gaming, is because I get too sucked in. Like, I don't play, well, in the past, I didn't play like any of the PlayStation or the Nintendo platforms. I did like a lot of PC gaming. So I would play like The Sims and just do that for hours, and I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't sleep, and I'm just like, yeah, I need to stop. Nothing will get done.
That's definitely a good thing about working in such a gaming-centric office is we all bring our Switches to work. And when we have downtime, we'll like play Mario Kart together or discuss Breath of the Wild tips. Like, oh, did you see this cool thing I discovered in this part of the map? And so it doesn't take up all my time because I know that I can kind of chunk some of it out at work. But oh yeah, no, it's definitely a problem with my social life is owning a Nintendo Switch.
That's awesome. I mean, the fact that you can actually like game at work, though, not everybody can do that.
It's definitely such a unique work environment. Being able to, like, there's not really a dress code. It's pretty chill. You know, you get to work with some of your closest friends and bring in your Switch. And there are dogs that wander around in the office, and you know, everybody like makes plans for drinks. It's just such a cool, chill workspace.
Okay, I need you to put in a referral for me the next time an application opens up. So I mentioned Universal FanCon. I really want you to come. I really would love you to be there.
Let me check the calendar and see what's going on around that time for sure.
Yeah. April 27th through the 29th next year in Baltimore. But tell our listeners what's next for you. What you got else underneath your sleeves there over at Roosterteeth?
Right now, since the summer is gearing up, I have so many cons that I don't think I'm like home for consecutive weekends through August. But I'm pretty excited. My dad and I are actually guesting at a few cons together, coincidentally. Our paths have finally crossed. Our dream has finally come true. And at Raleigh and Florida SuperCon, we're gonna guest to, like, not together. It's not like a father-daughter thing, but I'm guesting for my cosplay and he's guesting for his everything, and it's gonna be fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think when I started getting into nerd stuff and cosplay, we kind of joked like, hey, maybe one day I'll see you at a con at your booth. And now that dream is coming true. He's over the moon when I told him that I got invited to be a guest there and that we were going to be at a con together. So we're pretty excited.
Is he just as geeked out about like cosplay and anime and gaming like you are?
Gaming, yes. Cosplay and anime, not so much. He's definitely whenever I, tell him how much a cosplay cost or how much I spent on a half-naked waifu figurine, he doesn't get it, but he's like, you know what? It's not drugs. So that's fine. Like, how could you afford drugs when you buy $150 Final Fantasy figurines? And I'm like, exactly, right? Isn't that better?
Exactly. That's true. That's true.
It's true. I'm definitely a clean nerd because how can you afford anything else when you're a nerd?
You really can't. I mean, fandom is our drug, right? If you think about it.
Fandom is our drug. Exactly. So, I may have nothing in my bank account because hell yeah, I bought those limited edition Love Live figurines, but I'm happy. And that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. For real. So where can our listeners find you on the interwebs, and give us your social media handles?
I am Mica Burton, at Mica Burton on practically everything. Instagram, Twitter. I think that's pretty much the two biggies. Oh, even Snapchat is just Mica Burton. So everything is just my name. Definitely follow in August when my family and I are going to Japan. You're going to see so much nerd stuff because I'm going to geek out for 2 weeks.
Excellent. Nice. This was great. Thank you, Mica, so much for coming on our show. Give your dad our love.
Will do.
And we hope to see the both of you guys in Baltimore. And if not, we'd love for you to come back again on the podcast.
For sure. Maybe we'll just have to do a joint one after our joint con or something.
That sounds excellent.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I know he'd love to do that.
From Warner Brothers Pictures and MGM comes the romantic drama Everything Everything, directed by Stella Meghie and based on the best-selling book of the same name by Nicola Yoon. What if you couldn't touch anything in the outside world? Never breathe in fresh air, feel the sun warm on your face, or kiss the boy next door? Everything Everything tells the unlikely story of Maddie, a smart, curious, and imaginative 18-year-old who, due to an illness, cannot leave the protection of the hermetically sealed environment within her house, and Ollie, the boy next door, who won't let that stop them. In this interview features director Stella Meghie and features actresses Anika Noni Rose and Amandla Stenberg.
So, saw the movie. Amazing. What inspired you to come onto the project?
What inspired me to come onto the project? It was a multitude of things. One of them was that when I read the story and heard Stella's ideas, I knew that it would have a whimsical quality, something that was fresher and different from what I've seen in young adult romance stories. I was also just blown away that they were even interested in me. Researching it further, and as I learned more about the project, I learned that it was based off of a book written by a Black woman featuring a biracial lead, and it was directed by Stella. And so that was a fantastic opportunity just because of the diverse team behind it, because roles like this don't usually exist. And so when I saw that it existed, I had to take it. I knew it would be different, and that was important to me.
That's a great answer, because, I mean, we don't get to see, like you said before, we don't get to see ourselves in these types of roles. Like, as a romantic lead, we're normally cast aside as the best friend and plucky. So, to see someone that looks like me that takes on a role like that is amazing. I know it's going to be incredibly inspiring to a lot of younger women and they're already really inspired by you. I mean, you're pretty out on the forefront when it comes to intersectionality, and that's something we're really big about with Black Girl Nerds. So thank you for that. And we've worked with you before with your comics.
Yeah, of course.
And so, do you have any other plans for that coming?
For Niobe?
Yes.
Of course we got plans. We're working on an issue right now. Whole new illustrator, even though we love Ashley Woods, but we're moving into the next phase of Niobe, which is called She is Death. Niobe, like me, shaves her head and becomes a bounty hunter. I love it. Maybe the bounty hunter part. Actually, that is pretty much what I'm doing. So we got a whole new illustrator. We're working on it right now, and should be out pretty soon.
Yes. So that'll be reviewed by a bunch of us, and we'll all read it. So, Anika, with you don't shy away from taking on roles that, create a lot of talk within social media space. With this role in particular, what drew you to this character?
Again, it was the whimsy. It was the whimsy. I just feel like we, as Black women, are not allowed to skip through the fields with our dresses flipping behind us and butterflies swirling around our heads. And so to see something where that is the feeling, where the feeling is that of tropical fish in an aquarium somehow, I thought was really beautiful and different, and yet real and true at the same time. because we're dealing with really, true things that go on, real family struggles, real teenage struggles, real growing up struggles, and where Maddie is growing up, but so is her mother in some respects, or growing in general. I felt like it was a really important role to take, to see a mother who appears to have everything all together, but is actually a living ache, and what conversation that may open up. But also someone who functions solely propelled by her engine is love. That is her gas, her fuel, her reason for getting up each day, for going to work, for coming home, to making sure that this home is hermetically sealed so that her love can also be such and taken care of and unmoved and untouched and unhurt. I think that's a really interesting thing, and I think that we often find ourselves having to do that in different ways, as we move through random, casual fear of living.
You take my breath away when you talk. It comes with such weight. So seeing you in that role and what you brought to it was very moving, because it also sparks a conversation about mental health. And that is, very taboo within the Black community. And so opening that door to actually talk about that and how we carry the weight of loss and how we, move through it, through our day-to-day lives, this is going to be great going forward. Stella, for you taking on that story and opening up that conversation, did you feel a responsibility to make sure that you told it in the best way possible, with that stigma being in the Black community?
I mean, I felt a responsibility to the character of Pauline, so that at the end of this movie, you understood her and her struggle and what she'd been dealing with, and that she wasn't crazy, that this was, loss and grief that she had not dealt with. It was important for people to feel an empathy. And if you can feel an empathy for Pauline, you have to feel an empathy for mental illness. Mm-hmm.
So this is your first big studio debut. What is that feeling like for you right now? Because I've seen, Gene of the Joneses. I loved it. I was like, who followed my family and made this story? It's like, oh, we're just as crazy, and someone found that out. So what is that feeling like for you to have this blossom?
It's great. It's fantastic. And, it's not lost on me that usually you don't get to make this jump so quickly. But, after Gene, I just thought I would follow up with another one of, my scripts and, something in the same vein. And this project came along and it was just right for me. And I knew it was for me 10 pages into the script. They had been telling me to read it, and I was like, sure. I was still on the festival circuit, so I was just thinking about my other films. And then my manager was like, did you read it? I was like, okay, I'll read it. And 10 pages in, I texted her like, I think I'm supposed to do this film. And she was like, I tried to tell you, I didn't want to amp it up, And then I think I was on a plane the next week to pitch for it. So, it was just the right movie for me.
In the right place at the right time. And that's great. So what else are you working on? Because I know we just finished live tweeting the quad together. So
I just finished a film called Assassination Nation, which is loosely based on The Crucible. That doesn't sound exciting, but it really, really is.
Crucible's great.
And, but a lot of people aren't excited about it.
Yeah.
They just picture teenage girls screaming.
That gets me sad. That's my favorite play.
It's brilliant. And that's a brilliant play that's being translated to a brilliant current day situation. I'm very, very excited about that. And I'm working on producing some things. And, I just finished the quad. So hopefully these things will turn out to be exactly what I want them to be. I'm going to put that in the air. That never happened.
That's in the universe.
But I'm putting it out. I'm excited about walking a different path without letting go of what it is that I'm known to do, but to do a little more branching out. myself.
That's amazing. Thank you guys so much for your time. It's been great.
In our final segment, we're over at ClexaCon 2017. We have a diversity in comics panel featuring Black Girl Nerds contributors Kayla, Valerie, and Joelle. And also on the panel is Nyla from Geeks Out. So we talk about how the industry has been helpful for people of color in comics and not so helpful. So I hope you enjoy our diversity panel over at ClexaCon. It was a lot of fun. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Diversity in Comics panel. I'm super excited to panel with this amazing group of ladies. I'm Kayla. I work as a social media curator for Black Girl Nerds, and I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves and give you a little bit of background, and then we'll get started. So we can start down the row.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Broadnax. I'm the managing editor and founder of blackgirlnerds.com. And it's an online community that comprises of a website, a podcast, YouTube channel, very large and interesting social media following. We do live tweets and all types of fun things on Twitter. And I also go to mini cons across the country and talk at panels like this one. And we have meetups as well. So yeah, I've been doing that for about 5 years now.
Hi guys, I am tweeting. And my name is Joelle, and I work for Black Girl Nerds alongside Jim and some of these other ladies up here. I do movie reviews and comic reviews and sometimes just general commentary on Black community and the queer community. I also work at AfterBuzz TV where I do after shows. If you guys watch Talking Dead, it's essentially that with a bunch of shows. My favorite one is Orphan Black.
How you doing? My name is Valerie Complex. I am a writer. I write for Black Girl Nerds in addition to other websites. I've written for The Nerdist, IGN, Geek and Sundry. My own website will be coming back. It's called Anime Collection. I'm complete anime trash. And the website talks about, we talk about cosplay and anime from a diverse POC perspective. And that's always how I try to keep my writing. And I'm also around minutes.
Hello. Oh, my name is Nyla. I am here representing Geeks Out. And if you're unfamiliar, Geeks Out is a nonprofit, and our aims are to basically increase safe spaces in the geek world and geek cons and so forth for queer geeks. So we do a lot of sponsoring of events like this. Again, we have a big social media presence. We have a website where we do all kinds of writing on pretty much any and everything that's queer related and related to geekdom. I'm also a contributing writer for Geeks Out.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So what I want to know is what were your entry comics? What were you first reading? And did you notice a lack of diversity instantly, or did that come with adding more comics to your collection?
I actually was a super late bloomer. I also host a show called The Comic Book Exchange on Bookstore Online where we talk about comics. I am a newbie. I started reading comics in 2009 when I was in college, and my roommate was like, I can't believe you don't read comics. You watch all the movies and all the TV shows. My introduction to the comics world was Batman the Animated Series as a kid, and I was like, this is awesome. Where are people that look like me? And I kind of never got that. And then as I started collecting comics, I started with Batman and the DC Universe, and it became pretty clear that like aside from Storm, we're kind of like on the peripheral. I found Rocket much later in life, and I was like, okay, well, this is my girl, so I'm still waiting for her to get a solo series and be amazing and kill it.
For me, it was the X-Men. The X-Men animated series on Fox is what did me in. So much so, they actually had a comic book called X-Men Adventures. You guys remember that? I bought those comics, and obviously seeing Storm was everything to me. So she was definitely my gateway into comic books.
But yeah, it grew from there. I was an Archie reader. I mean, I think a lot of us that started in comics got into Archie because it used to be like at the grocery store, the checkout counter, you get the Archie book. But yeah, just seeing Archie comics, X-Men, and then I got into other books like Excalibur, which was like a team that had some of the X-Men members in it based in the UK. And I started reading comics when I was 9 years old. And I've always kind of been a fan of those, of that subculture. My mom used to drop my brother and I off of at the comic book store. And she'd just go shopping for hours, and we would just be there just reading her comic books, and we'd take some home. And I also played with the comic book trading cards that they had, and I would trade cards with friends. So yeah, I've been a long time reader and fan of the books since I was a kid.
X-Men was another gateway for me, but I used to, be heavy into watching the shows, and I used to collect like trading cards. I had holograms, and I'm still bitter that my mother put them out. But really, I didn't start reading comics until I was in college. My friend handed me a DVD and was like, "Here, read this." And I was like, "Great, I can read this and not do homework. This is awesome." And the first comic that I officially ever read was V for Vendetta, which is like a graphic novel, I guess. And it was about revolution and everything, but you still didn't see people that looked like me or that people looked like a lot of you. But it wasn't until that I got affiliated with the Black Girl Nerds community that I really started to notice that there was a lack of women of color and just lack of marginalized communities in the comic book world, and then those that existed, the way they were represented was just crappy, and they deserved better. And so that's why I sit on panels like this to advocate for better representation.
I think like a lot of people, my first foray into comic books was the Archie comics. Because as a kid, I had no idea that there was any kind of community, didn't know what fandom was, or what comic book stores were. Like I said, they were in grocery stores, they were easy to get, and my mother would buy them for me when I asked. And yeah, Archie, now, Archie's like much better and like pretty cool. But at least when I was reading it as a kid, let's say like early 90s, whatever, it was definitely like possibly like the whitest, comic. Greg was really, really white. And so I was so used to, I don't think I noticed, because I was so used to, most of the media I consumed and watched was majority white. So it was really hard for me to, see the difference. And then I got into X-Men and I think I got into the cartoon first, like X-Men cartoon, and also Batman, the Batman cartoon, and I was hardcore into Batman Beyond. The cartoon was like 2 seasons, and it was like the worst. It was like canceled. I was like, "Can't write about Batman Beyond fanfiction now."
Fanfiction never dies.
And so when I got into Marvel, I had no guide, so I was just really picking up whatever with no sense of like continuity or story, which led to some really like weird things. Like I read Ultimate X-Men, or sorry, not me. I mean Ultimate, like the Ultimates, the Ultimate Avengers, which I would not recommend as anyone's gateway to the Avengers. And I was like, oh my god, all these people are tools. I hate Captain America, and now I'm complete Captain America trash. I have a Captain America tattoo, and I was like, can't remember there was a time I thought Captain America was like not cool and like mean. But yeah, so now I'm much more aware, and I actually purposely seek out like writers I like and artists and so forth, and specific characters. But yeah, like comics today are it's much easier to do that than it was back in the day.
So when talking about diversity within the comic industry, there seems to be a misunderstanding with where diversity should start. If it should be started in the writer's room or with anyone writing in diverse characters. So where do you think the diversity should start? Should it start on paper with someone just taking on that role? of writing a diverse character, or should it start with actually hiring diverse writers?
For me, it's really important that diversity start behind, like with writers and artists, and also I think incredibly importantly and often left out of the conversation is the editors. It's a lot of times the editors going out to find the talent and putting them together and curating the stories, and they're oftentimes guiding the tone of the story as well. And I think that if we can have more diverse people, not just involved in the creation, but in the hiring of diverse people, that it gets us a lot further. I'm always excited, like Jason Aaron does a lot of diverse storytelling. He did Scouts, which is like this incredible graphic novel, which takes place entirely on an Indian reservation. And I just feel like even though he is a white guy, like his research was impeccable and he really cared about the story. And I think that if we're going to have white creators telling stories from or anybody telling stories from a community they're not a part of, do your research first. And I think that if we can get a combination of that, of people telling stories outside of themselves that are well-researched editors and people in hiring positions going out and finding really good stories and then bringing in creators who are already working, that we can have a really diverse comics field in like no time at all. It seems very simple.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it definitely starts with editors and certainly having writers and artists on a lot of these books. The fact that Storm is finally being written by a Black woman for the first time ever is very much a very interesting thing. I mean, Yona Harvey, I'm very excited for her. She's going to be doing the Black Panther and Crew book, and the fact that Storm is being written by a Black woman for the first time is just crazy to me. But I see that Marvel is making strides, and that's excellent. World of Wakanda, if you have not read that already, get your life. Get your life. I mean, Black queer women in a book that is so fully fleshed out, and it's a complex relationship, and it's not a trope. It's just so beautifully well done, and being written by a Black queer writer. That's good. I'm glad that Marvel's making those strides, but there's still a lot of work to do. It's kind of funny. There was a tweet that someone shared, and it was a panel from the Miles Morales book where him and a group of folks was looking at some sort of Twitter feed, and they were celebrating, getting some sort of recognition. And Miles Morales says, "We're lit." And I thought that was kind of funny because it's not "we're lit," it's lit. Miles is not wasted with his friends right now in that context. So like things like that, I think maybe we need to have some folks in the room of color to correct on that. And then also on a more serious note, Brian Michael Bendis, who is the creator of Miles Morales, there was a very kind of colorblind moment where Miles Morales says that he doesn't want to be known as the Black Spider-Man. And I just think that right now, things like that is a little bit tone deaf, because a lot of us want to be recognized for our Blackness, for our queerness. And I think that it's okay to feel empowered by your identity and not to be colorblind, because honestly, colorblindness can be a very dangerous thing to wander into. But yes, having editors, having writers, having artists, when there's so many, and so many that are incredibly talented, to have a voice and to have a platform to be able to share their work, it's definitely needed. And even though the big two gets a lot of flack, I think that one of the things that we do here at BGN is we hold their feet to the fire when it comes to the big two, but we also support those independent creators that are already doing the work. Organizations like Women in Comics that have Black female writers and artists and editors that are already putting out books. We're making sure that their work gets, noted and amplified on social media and on the website, and having them as guests on the podcasts. So we do that, as well as say, hey, Marvel, you need to have some more Black writers in the room. You need to have more Black artists in the room, and same with DC. So yes, it's important all the way around.
I'm curious from the audience, how many of you guys can name more than 5 writers of color that are associated with comics? If you can do so, hold up your hand and tell me how many you got on both fingers. I'll give it like 10 seconds. I think the lack of urgent response is inherently the problem, because either it's, these comic book houses aren't promoting certain writers, or people are not going to know what they don't know. So, like you were saying, I encourage you to go out and research, even if they're not as big, to research independent writers. If you find a story that interests you by someone who sort of reflects who you are, I encourage you to go out and sort of look at their work, because hopefully by sometime in the future we can all call out more than 2 writers of color, or marginalized writers or queer writers who are on some of our favorite characters in comic books.
Yeah, in addition to echoing what the rest of the panel said about obviously increasing more people of color and people of other non-identified communities, non-identified like represented communities in the writers' room and promotion. But I think it also starts a lot with the fans and the fandom. Because there's still such a very specific idea of like what a comic book fan looks like or who they are, which is still the old stereotype of like the comic book guy from The Simpsons. Could be like some like 30-year-old straight white cis guy, and they think they're catering to that to the audience. No matter how much data we have, they're like, hey, 50% of buyers or video game players, etc., are women, people of color, and so forth. That still gets lost, and those voices, like the straight cis white men, are still such like the loudest voice in the room when it comes to comics. Like I spend like a lot of time because I hate myself on comic book resources. Self-hate. And that form is so dominated by like the saltiest like press like white guys ever. And anytime there's ever any like discussion about diversity, like hey like America Chavez is getting her own book, or there's new Iron Man, immediately all they're screaming like that it's pandering and like social justice warriors, and why can't comics not be like political, which is a super like tone deaf like you need here like comics are always be political, but and so a lot of these writers and the people in urban Marvel, I imagine have to just be completely tone deaf, whatever, not to know what their base is. So for a lot of time, the burden, which is not fair, but the burden falls on people from marginalized communities. He'd be like, hey, we're here, can we get some kind of good representation and so forth. I think of when Jughead was confirmed as like canonically like asexual, now in the open, the response to that was so huge, and so many people were so surprised, like, what? Like, we didn't think that'd be such a big deal. And I was like, well, there's a whole, not so secret population of asexual people out there who are dying for representation, of themselves. They're there. You just have, if you dug a little deeper or asked, you find, hey, women want to be represented, and black people, people of color, people of, other, religions that aren't, Christianity, and trans people, etc. And there is a danger that because the writers' rooms are so male, white, cis, and so forth, you end up getting those people trying to do diversity, and sometimes it's like really hit or miss. So sometimes they, I like Brian Michael Bendis. I know some people like love hate, Brian Michael Bendis. I could have, some love for, like I follow him on Tumblr and stuff. But for him, I think he's trying, and I feel like his effort comes from the fact that he has like a multicultural blended family. I know like 2 of his children are black. So he has like a vested interest, but you shouldn't have to have a vested interest, like that to do diversity. So it's really hit or miss. So I would say that, from the fandom, from the ground up, we just need to like yell and scream and talk with our dollars and so forth until, especially the big, you know, Marvel, DC, and so forth, have to pay attention. Like, okay, we'll hire, you know, a trans writer or a Latina or like an Asian woman, you know, that kind of thing.
And you guys have kind of touched on that with answering the last question, but what are the issues with cisgendered and non-POC people writing for characters that are POC and characters that fall on the LGBTQIA spectrum? And if they do write these characters, can it be done right?
Yeah, it can absolutely be done right. And I think that a lot of times when people from other communities come to talk about a new community, they often want to start with the struggle, which I think tends to be the biggest issue. They want to come at it with like I want to save this character through their story. Like, I'll show the real grit of what this community has to go through without understanding fully what that pain, not only what that pain is, but the fact that that's not the thing that makes that community whole. Like, the fact that gay people had to be closeted for so long is not what made them a community. You know, it's certainly an aspect, it's certainly something that you want to explore, but it is not the core of the community in the same way that the core of black people is not the history of slavery or gang violence or any of the other things that our community has struggled with throughout history. We are very diverse, we have a lot of different opinions, and it's important that when you're showing someone from a community that you don't know anything, talk to someone within, and not just one person, like multiple people within the community, get a sense of like what that community is and how they rally together. And like inside jokes, I think, are the things that for me, when I'm reading a comic by someone outside of the community, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, they did their work. Like, it's these small inside jokes, these things that you can only know if you were part of the community, that makes the story rich and full. And I think that that's what's really important when you're writing these stories.
I think that there's a hesitation for doing that kind of research. I went to the Black Comics Con in New York City, and they were talking to the author of Kindred, Octavia Butler's Kindred, which is now a graphic novel, and the writer is a white straight male of the book, and someone stood up and asked the question, so yeah, did you where did you get your information from? Did you talk to black women about struggles of slavery? Did you do your research? And he mentioned his initial apprehension for going for that information. He didn't really get into it and explain why, but I can see why there would be an apprehension there. I think that especially men, I think they're afraid of coming off as not knowing what they should know, because men don't know it all. So I'm just joking. It's almost like sort of asking for directions, saying, "I know where I'm going." And then they, end up being asked questions that they can't answer. And I think the same thing sort of works in comics. They sort of just go on. Maybe they watch BET or Real Housewives of Atlanta. That's where they get their inspiration from.
What's this one called?
Like David Ayer and Suicide Squad. Or you have situations where it can be done right, where you look at Barry Jenkins in Moonlight. He's a straight male who was able to direct a fantastic film that got the point across and everybody understood exactly what was going on. So it can be done right. But the difference is Barry went to the source. He went to the writer of the source material and actually got information on how to make Moonlight as proper a representation as possible. These people are not doing that. They need to swallow their pride and start doing this if they think they're going to continue to dominate the community.
Or write something else.
Because there are many who, when you look at the Twitter feeds of Rob Liefeld and
God.
You invoked his name.
The other guy, what's his name? He drew the Spider-Woman booty. You look at them, they're like, but why? Why me? And I don't think they want their careers to end because there's like a really good, there's like a good old boys club where they create a lot of cheesecake bullshit, and they're used to that, but they don't like the idea that the atmosphere is changing and their careers are on the line. But they refuse to get with the program. Good. Nobody wants to see that ugly. Let me be quiet.
I'm just going to jump in just in case, Twitter goes off on you, that the Kindred novel is also co-authored by John Jennings, who's a black man. Okay. So maybe he's getting insight from John Jennings. But I think also, Kelly Sue DeConnick is a great example of a white writer who's writing black women very well in Bitch Planet. And I also commend Kelly Sue for bringing on black feminists to have a voice in the back matter of her books with these brilliant essays that have been written. So yes, she's done a fantastic job. Kind of meandering off into a different direction from your question, I do want to just talk about the work that I'm doing. I actually launched a new podcast called Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro. And it's about black women superheroes. And I think what I've found in the feedback from people so far that have been listening to the podcast is it's very refreshing for them to hear about these stories of all of these black female characters that have been written by white men, cisgendered white men, that for the first time they're hearing a black woman's perspective on these characters. And they're learning more about these women in details in ways that they haven't been able to capture in comics. And these are women that have been written about for 40 years plus. We did an episode about Storm. We did obviously an episode about our namesake Misty Knight. And the fact that they're hearing these stories about their origin, about their character development, and they're just like, I've been reading comics for years, but I didn't realize this about a certain character is it's a really cool thing to get this kind of feedback. So I really hope that for a lot of us that say, hey, we're not seeing ourselves represented, that we kind of take ownership and go, you know what, we're going to create our own, and we're going to analyze and scrutinize characters that we've loved that may not been written so well in the past, and dissect their stories and present their stories in a way that hasn't been quite done before. And I even think Marvel themselves are kind of looking at what I'm doing, because Marvel tweeted out a story about Misty Knight all of a sudden after the podcast launched. And when Luke Cage came out, I didn't hear anything about Misty Knight from Marvel. So it's good. I'm glad folks are paying attention. I'm glad that light is being shed, and that hopefully Misty will get her own movie. Misty will get her own book.
Her own spin-off Netflix series.
Yes, a Daughters of the Dragon will happen. Yes. So yeah, I just wanted to add that taking ownership is incredibly important.
Yeah, and I think it's also important that a creator has to act authentically and genuinely want to get it right. There are projects behind it, and they want to put out, a good book that people in the community they're portraying actually go, okay, that's legit. And I'm thinking of G. Willow Wilson. She's the writer of Ms. Marvel. And Ms. Marvel, title character, is a teenage first-gen Pakistani Muslim girl. And G. Willow Wilson, she is Muslim, but she's American white woman. No immigrant experience, not Pakistani and so forth. And I think the biggest compliment to her in that book is that when I showed my my Desi and Bengali and Muslim friends, they were like, oh my god, they're like, this is so funny. And like I said, there was all these inside jokes, and there's Arabic interspersed, at least from what I've known, from my Muslim South Asian community friends that I've been friends with for decades. I could recognize the authenticity and the realness of it, especially from someone who is within the religion of Islam. That comes across very strongly. And like I said, it's just it's so important to her that Muslims and teenage girls and East Asians and all these communities are represented well. And because she knew how big the first it's going to be one of the first Muslim heroes, and especially in this climate, there's a lot riding on Kamala Khan, and it was a huge success. But you can tell that her heart and soul is there, and that it's really, really important to her to get it right. And so, cause I think you can tell when it's like just like kind of copied and pasted.
I was going to say, I'm glad you bring up that the intention is incredibly important. What is the, oh my gosh, you said volume 2 of a Batman story, like, Batman, he's old, he's crotchety, he's fighting. Speaking of the girl Robin, y'all. Thank you. The Dark Knight Returns volume 2, the opening text messages with the black kids, where they were, it's just such the definition of like a white man's interpretation of like black street slang. And it was so offensive and difficult to read and shout. I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying to one another. Like, why did you do this?
No, I don't know what you want.
We saw. You have a question?
Yeah, isn't Brie Larson playing Miss Marvel in like upcoming movies?
Captain Marvel, yes.
Captain Marvel, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the first time you saw yourself in a comic, and have you actually seen yourself fully represented?
I can speak to a couple of like I still don't feel like to this day that I've seen like, I mentioned the other day that Susie Carmichael was the first time I saw myself on television, and I was like, oh, this girl is like me, I totally get it. And I'm not sure I've had that full experience yet. I'm mostly a DC reader. Bumblebee comes pretty close, and Rocket. I like Rocket because she's mouthy, which I was like, I see you, girl, I totally understand. And also she relies heavily on a mentor. I forgot, like, I'm like JD from Scrubs. I just always want somebody to be like guiding and steering me a little bit, helping me out. And she's really in tune with her mentor, and she gets to build really cool tech, which I have no skill for, but always really wanted. So Rocket's pretty dope.
I haven't seen one yet either. I would say if I was younger when Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaur came out, then yes, I would completely identify with Lunella Lafayette. But she's 9 and I'm 36, so that's not happening. And even Riri Williams and the Invincible Iron Man, these fantastic ladies who are super smart, and not nearly as smart as them, but I definitely had my head in the books in school, and I was like the bookworm, and very socially awkward and inept, much like Lunella is with her classmates. So I definitely see a lot of my younger self in those women, but I would love to see like a Black Girl Nerd book with with women that are sort of my age, like millennials and older.
Like a girlfriend's superhero comic book.
Yeah, something like that. So that would be fantastic. I mean, I definitely first saw myself in Storm just for like identity, like optics,
Yes.
Just seeing a brown girl
running stuff.
Yeah, running stuff and in cartoons. And again, like she's the reason why I got into comics, and that's why that's so important to see yourself in comics, because I don't think I would have gotten into them had I not seen Aurora Monroe. So yeah,
I can say for myself, no, but for in cases like Moon Girl, my niece is 10 years old, loves her. Mm-hmm. Trying to get her to cosplay. She's kind of just like her. Yeah, just like her too. Because your kids are like, no, I'm saying. But one of the, I'm going to say for myself, no, but one of the stories that I remember recently that I thought was really cool was a story by Mark Millar called Miles Per Hour. And since I grew up poor and around a lot of drug addicts, Miles Per Hour pretty much is, there's a drug that's out on the street that gives people the powers of speed, meaning they can run from downtown New York to Harlem in under a minute. And, if you've seen people on drugs...
I think they went across the globe and New York to Harlem and you're like, measure.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've seen how some people act on drugs, you would think they could, pick up a Mack truck and throw it. And, I know it, I'm trying to make it sound funny, but it's a pretty bleak picture of what it's like to be someone on drugs in a poor neighborhood and trying to find a way out. And here it is, they have the power of speed, so now they can run from the cops, and now they can steal things, and that's just more of like a story that I could relate to as opposed to like a character, because I think stories are also important when it comes to relatability as well. Because if you put, if put like a black character in a certain atmosphere and it doesn't make sense, then we're not going to be able to connect to it. So the story along with the characters has to be there. It has to all click. So.
Yeah, I think for me, like, Storm was the first character. Beginning, it was just like aesthetics, just black women. And I love Storm. She's one of my like top 5, favorite, X-Men characters. But I'm nothing like Storm. We have nothing in common.
We're not goddesses, no.
We're not Beyonce. It's like Beyonce. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Beyonce.
I'm not that serene. I'm not like the leadership quality. So yeah, when I think of all my identities, like, no, I can't think of a character, that fits. I feel like where I would fit, like if they created like, a black, queer, super geeky character and then like put her on the Young Avengers team, because I'm Young Avengers trash. Like this is, the second run, which I love because the pop culture is straight on. Like they did their, homework, even though the writers stuff were like the grown-ass men, but that book, it had such a teenage accurate like sensibility. It was social media, but that's a team I would fit into. I would be like a Young Avenger. And yeah, I don't see very many like black women like me in much of any pop culture. I mean, especially growing up, like the struggle was so real. So, I was being like, a black girl. I grew up in like South Central Los Angeles, and I wasn't into any of the things really that like the other like black kids around me were. And I was like endlessly like ostracized for it, or so I was trying to be white, and that sort of thing. So if I had actually been able to see like a geeky bookworm, who's into pop music and that kind of thing, that would have been like everything to me, because I felt like completely like alone until I was actually much older adult, and I'm like, okay, like there are people like me. Like when I discovered Black Girl Nerds, I was like, I was like, my people, it's actually called Black Girl Nerds. I found my place, but that was like a couple years ago. So, and yeah, and I'm 36 too. So for the first 30 years of my life, that would have been awesome sauce.
I have a quick question. Do you guys, for me, because I was trying to think, like, as we're sitting here talking, you guys were telling, like, what you do relate to. It occurred to me that maybe we're not seeing ourselves because black women are often portrayed, especially in comics, as, like, endlessly strong. Like, when we talk about, like, Storm is boss. Like, this is no shade to Storm. But she's, like, calm, but she's also, like, a dope fighter, but she's also, like, a leader, but she's also, like, a great, like, one-on-one teacher. She's almost nothing Storm can't do. And while that's really cool, it's not at all realistic. And the more I think, like, even, like, the girls I'm really excited to see pop up in comics, like Rocket, like, there doesn't seem to be a limit to what she's able to do. And I feel like maybe we don't get to see, like, soft or very sensitive or even, more, like, in physical appearance, more butch/masculine, like, women. And they exist and they're out there. And I think it's kind of, it is endlessly frustrating to know hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people, hundreds of black women specifically, just with giant ranges of personalities and life decisions and makeups, and only have one portrayed to us over and over and over again. And I'm really glad you mentioned Dinosaur, because she's her little Afro puffs. She gives me all of the life. I really hope that, I don't know if we have any like super younger viewers in here, but if that character really touches, can you like talk to me about it? Because I really want to know like how seeing, somebody who is sensitive, who is socially awkward, who wears black skin, and how that kind of touches you.
Do you guys feel like there's a character out there that encompasses who you are specifically? Anybody? Raise your hand.
And she's pointing to it right here.
America Chavez.
Right on. Totally.
I see some people like doing some spirit fingers. What does that mean?
I was going to say
Shout them out.
I just this year, Alex Danvers.
Yes, right on.
But even then, she still is really together. It's just now that she's in a relationship with a woman that we see some awkwardness in her character that I didn't see the first season. But like, I'm 37 too, and it's her story at 37 that looks the most like my life right now. Mm-hmm. Not that I can point to a couple people like Joe from Facts of Life, and again, these are comic books. It's not comic
Yeah.
But that seemed a little like me when I was, but never, like you said, something that was. Alex Danvers right now is probably the closest.
I think
at 37, that's when I.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I'd say actually Waverly Earp.
Waverly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on.
So I was dating a guy and I realized I was like, wow, this girl's pretty.
What you got?
Kind of not for me now, but for similar to for me when I was a kid, Lumberjanes would have been
Such a great comic book.
That would have been as a kid to see just strong girls who it's all about friendship and they get involved in crazy adventures at summer camp. And I never went to summer camp, but that would have been a summer camp I would have wanted to go to.
Hell yes.
So like that was for like Lumberjanes. I'm very new to it. That was my gateway.
What I think is interesting about the Alex Danvers story. Did you guys see the story that went viral about the comic book shop girl?
Yeah.
Guys, that story like had me in tears for maybe a full day. Like the idea that what I like about our community is now that we've branched out, not just comic books, not just video games, not just movies, but now TV, and of course I full-heartedly include fan fiction in this because us getting to tell our stories to one another I think is a vital part of what keeps us together. I just think it's kind of amazing how now we can bring in people into our community through outlets that they maybe never would have been exposed to otherwise, and I think Supergirl is doing that in just leaps and bounds. It's amazing. Alex's story has been really touching for me too. This person who's just starting to date is just like, okay, so it's cool that I'm like uncomfortable talking about things and I'm not quite sure how to react or what to say ever, and I can still be like loved and loved back. So it's really important. Thank you guys for sharing. I really appreciate it.
So, really fast, there's been a lot of race bending and gender bending in comics, and it tends to piss people off, but who cares? So is there a character where you think this has worked well for, or is there one that isn't working, like that you feel it just shouldn't be done?
Kayla, didn't you have a thought on this earlier? We were kind of talking about it at the table.
I wasn't necessarily thrilled with the way Thor gender bend was written, with her being weakened by cancer.
Spoiler.
Spoiler, sorry. It kind of was like for me, like, why does that have to be her story? Why? It just bothered me because it's, that's how men work. Why couldn't that just be like everyone else? Like Kate is just Hawkeye. And America is just America. But no, let's take this that has been always centered around a male ego. I'm not a huge Thor fan, but can't tell of him by himself. I mean, he's like the Superman of Marvel. Like, I can do anything. And it's like, I like to see flawed people, which is probably why I always identified with Loki over him. So I have issues with that gender bend more than anything. Everything else, other than Riri being written from, I know how you feel about that, Jamie.
With Riri. I think the thing with Bendis, I get the fact you mentioned that, his kids are black and that's cool. But I think that when you write characters, especially with a 15-year-old black girl, you've got to just be very careful. One of the things that bothers me with Riri's story is the fact that she stems from a very tragic origin with, I guess, spoiler alert, with her parents, her stepfather being killed, and then it happens twice. So, and then she's from Chicago, and Chicago has to be riddled with violence in order for it to be an authentic story. But there are parts of Chicago that aren't.
I'm a Chicago native, and I can tell you wholeheartedly that it's not.
Yeah.
There are pockets of extreme violence, but for the most part, it's a city like
It's a city, so it perpetuates a stereotype. And I did a recording on this on the podcast coming up, and Stephanie, my co-host, she's from Chicago, and she talked about that exactly, that there are pockets that are safe, and that it's not this, place just filled with violence. So you know, that's the part of Riri's story that I just don't like, is that she's got to be relegated to this really tragic superhero story, which, quite frankly, like the orphan hero story, how many times have we seen that done?
Too many. We had the same thing with Miles, and Miles coming from a single parent home. I'm like, well, not all Latins come from a single parent home, but okay.
Miles didn't come from a single parent home. Right? Do you have your mom and dad? Is it
Spoilers?
Go for it.
We've been spoiling all day.
Whatever.
In the middle, when he's still in the Ultimates universe, his mom does die.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's this whole thing, but now that he's in the regular Marvel universe, it's back to two parents.
Oh, okay.
So the changing back and forth, and like the turmoil with that, I didn't necessarily care for that either. But, you know.
Any of you guys have a gender and character that you think is problematic for any reason in particular, or, you know, kind of like the issues expressed up here that you can think of?
I don't have a problem with it, but I do.
Can everybody hear her?
I don't have a problem with like gender bending and race bending at all, but I do think that we should have our own original characters for us.
Yeah.
You know, original Latino characters.
Yeah, my problem with most gender bending, race bending stories is that, like, oh, it's temporary. So, like, don't worry, fanboys. Like, we're just giving them a taste, something they can enjoy for now, and then they can get off our backs about it later.
Yep.
Which is,
about Sam Wilson?
I'm talking about almost all the time. They're just like, don't worry, like, Thor will go back. Like, it's not permanent. I don't need you to stress. It's cool. And that's kind of why I gravitated so hard to Miles Morales. Like, I haven't found a woman that represents me, but man, if Miles isn't, like, for my, like, younger self, like, just fully, like, just a kid who's like, I want to do really well in school, and I want to really impress my parents, and I also, you know, want to try to save the world. It's just like a naive, very childish thing to think, but it's also beautiful and kind of amazing. And while I think there's definitely been steps off the path for his story, for just getting to read him, like, it fills me with so much joy to see Miles Morales in the costume.
But you also gotta, there are original characters out there, but you gotta put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. Thank you.
And
Finger snaps.
I love going into the forums, and they're like, create original characters, and I'm like, yeah, so let's list off how many you're supporting, and then it's like dead silence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, you know, you can't tell me what to do and then be hypocritical. Put your money where your mouth is. There's, you know, Moon Girl was being threatened with cancellation because it wasn't selling or something like that. And then it turns around and Black Panther is like #1 for April 2016. So people, they know where to go and they know how to get it. They just need to support it and shut up and stop complaining.
Right.
And actually pay the money to get the comics so that they can be popular and they can stick around, and people need to be more vocal. Hey, you know, maybe you could give us 2 Thors, since they give us a whole bunch of events every year. Why don't you just write something with this, you know, well, we got 2 or something, something other than, you know, just retconning everything like it never happened. You know, like the rebirth with DC Dr. Manhattan comes in.
We don't talk about that.
The New 52's gone because the world, you know, Dr. Manhattan erased 10 years. You know,
So sorry about that.
Anyway,
2 years. It's awful.
So just remember to, put your money up and support.
Amen to that.
Did anyone have any questions?
Don't be shy, guys.
We know bye.
Yo.
From a creator standpoint, when you're building a world and you want to make it a diverse world and everything, and you're doing, cultures and things like that, in your opinions, do you think that it would be better to make a world that that mirrors our world, or one that you just kind of make it your own and you just pick things that you like from different places?
I think it really depends on the story that you're trying to tell. For example, if you guys have attended any of the YA panels here, you've probably heard them talk about the fact that we've got these readers now, making sure that when you're representing a culture that it's accurate. We've seen a lot of talk on Twitter with people writing books where they're basically just picking up a culture and giving it a new name and saying, like, look at this thing I created. I think if you're going to go really hard into fantasy, I think you should make a new culture. Like, don't pick up a culture and then be like, oh, I stole like little things from it and now it's new. It's not new. You just ripped it off and you didn't give credit to the culture that, created all these beautiful things, all these stories, all these traditions.
We call that Matt Damon.
So. Yes, it's not good. It's not a good look. But I think that if you're telling a story here and now in the present, or even sometimes in the past, like, God, what is that show? Timeless. I love what Timeless is doing. Timeless gets to literally change the past. It's got their black character. We got so nervous. I was like, you can send this black man into the past every week. Like, that's dangerous. Don't do that. But they lean full into it. Like, they know that it's dangerous for him. They have a plan in case things go bad. He's got to do things that he wouldn't necessarily want to do, but he also gets to learn history, like the the Lone Ranger episode, which is just thrilling and amazing and wonderful to watch. So I really think it depends on what kind of story you're trying to tell. I would say that the most important thing as a creator is don't rip off another culture. Don't give it a new name. Don't try to spice it up, and don't talk about it if you don't know about it.
Anybody else have any questions?
Web comics are more diverse team really gets within comics, and so what web comics would you recommend?
Ooh, good questions. Octopus Pie is amazing. It's wonderfully diverse, and it's so good, guys. And it's so many years. There's so much content for Octopus Pie. Definitely check that out. Really old comic, but still available for free. Written by someone famous, but whose name escapes me right now. Archangel, which is like a future, and it's teens, and it's dystopian, and some of the best art you'll see on web. This is when my comics were just getting started. I think he read it for like 3 years. Wonderful stuff. Oh my goodness. What was a lesbian comic? It's something strap-ons, but I can't remember. She works at a sex shop, and it's amazing. I'll try to tweet it out if I remember it later.
I mentioned World of Wakanda, Get Your Life. Gem the Holograms is amazing.
Ooh, the question
Sophie
was
Campbell's doing awesome. Web comics. Agents of the Realm by Mildred Lewis is really good. Who's the comic writer that does Pom Pom something? Oh gosh.
Yeah. Bad today. Google will know.
Yeah.
Right? It's right here.
And it's in webcomic form, but it's also in print. Afrocentric by Jules Smith is really good.
I read a lot of like manga online, or a lot of like manga and stuff, and manhwa. One that I can recommend is called Love Fighting by Sharita Morris, I think her name is, and it's about she's half black and half Korean, and she lives in Korea, and she has a Korean boyfriend, and it's really interesting. So I would check that out on the web, and you can actually, if you follow me on Twitter at Valerie Complex, just one word, I'll tweet out some suggestions if you're interested, or you can stop by the Black Girl Nerds booth for
booth 110
for more recommendations if you're interested. We'll be there, or you can stop over at Geeks Out. What's your booth number again?
206.
206, and find out recommendations there.
All right, well, ladies, thank you so much for doing this panel, and thank you guys for stopping by. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. The Black Girl Nerds podcast is produced by Jamie Broadnax. Various episodes are edited by Jamie Broadnax, M.R. Daniel, and John Bauer. The opening theme song to our show is written and performed by Samus. Various instrumentals are performed by Samus, Sky Blue, and Shubzilla. You can find episodes of the Black Girl Nerds podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spreaker, and Spotify.
That was a HeadGum podcast.